To Be of Good Cheer by M.H. April 15th, 2023.
The cheerfulness in a lived form is more valuable for the human being and more desirable than gold, platinum, or diamonds. The antidote to worldly and personal misery, beautifully presented by Billy Meier in this excerpt from Might of the Thoughts, 2nd edition, pages 210-214.
What rational, evolutively thinking human being does not wish for himself or herself an equalized psyche, healthy, powerful, positive and creative thoughts as well as an effectively equalized life? Truly, there is certainly not one single human being who would not wish this. And, in fact, for those who have at their disposal all these values and have real love, joy, peace, freedom, and harmony, it never matters whether the sun shines, whether it rains, whether it is stormy, it snows or hails, whether droughts or floods, volcanic eruptions or wars draw across the land, or whatever changes may come about. They always remain calm, friendly, cheerful, and equalized. This attitude corresponds to an outstanding characteristic which represents an extraordinarily important lesson on the human being's way of the self-realization and the evolution. And the cheerfulness is actually one of the most valuable blossoms of the life, and it is the fruit of the might of the thoughts, when they are progressively tended and nurtured in a neutral, positive, equalized form. But to that end, it is required that all necessary changes are carried out which every individual must carry out himself or herself, and in this regard, every human being is this individual. And directly concerning this, the truth is that no individual human being can afford to simply live from day to day and wait until someone appears who carries out the necessary changes for him or her, only because he or she will not do it himself or herself. C.G. Jung also recognized this ancient wisdom and put it into the following words.
The change must begin with the individual. Each of us can be this individual. Nobody can afford to simply look around and wait for someone who is supposed to do that which one will not do oneself.
Therefore, for the human being, there is no salvation teaching as is claimed by sects and religions, gurus and divinities who appoint themselves through their own grace, and sublime ones and exalted ones and all kinds of misleading societies and so forth, all of whom would have their followers and faithful believe it. There is no salvation teaching, and therefore such a teaching also cannot be supported, because truthfully, every single human being creates his or her own salvation himself or herself, from his or her own thoughts and their might, as well as through his or her feelings and acts and deeds, and the cheerfulness in a lived form is more valuable for the human being and more desirable than gold, platinum, or diamonds. It is a work of knowledge, of wisdom, and of lived practical experience. All that which pertains to the joy, the peace, the love, the freedom, the fairness, the righteousness, the humaneness of the knowledge, the wisdom, and the equalized harmony is concentrated in the cheerfulness. However, this kind of cheerfulness has nothing in common with an artificial cheerfulness which is presented as an illusion for purely societal reasons, or which is called forth by alcohol consumption or abuse of drugs and medications. Because genuine cheerfulness is actually a state which is based in achieved knowledge as well as in lived practical experiences and in wisdom, and which expresses that which wisdom contains in itself as the life-sustaining essence. How pathetic and insignificant the forced or artificially called forth cheerfulness appears in comparison, as well as mere money-earning and material craving for pleasure, as well as all the human being's vices, desires, and addictions. The true cheerfulness is a circumstance of life which is based in the ocean of truth in which the waves endlessly keep everything in motion, and yet they preserve calmness and peace deep below where, beyond the reach of the storms, the life is created and maintained in an unimagined degree of diversity. Instead of making life a joy, very many human beings make it the exact opposite. Grumpily, they waste their lives away, ruin their lives as a result of explosive outburst, and thereby destroy everything which is beautiful and splendid, which broadens one's horizons, and which is enlivening in every regard. A great many simply go on existing in this form without really living. They destroy their own power for the forming of their character, morality, and personality. And they create, for their own psyches and for their fellow human beings, devastating, sheer problems through hate, envy, unpeace, egocentricity, and many other bad and negative factors. And, in fact, the justified question arises whether indeed the human beings who constitute the great majority of terrestrial humanity are sick with this negativism and have more or less ruined their entire lives and disregarded and destroyed their evolution as a result of a considerable lack of self-control, lack of understanding, and lack of obligation-based feeling of responsibility. It is effectively indeed the case that when human beings are observed, appraised, and assessed, it is, as a rule, always only a few and real exceptions who, in every regard, lead an equalized life with an equalized character, and a morality and disposition and personality of the same kind, and who possess that exquisite attitude which is the distinctive mark of actual adherence to the creational natural laws and recommendations, and, with that, of the conscious evolution. It is that life-determining attitude which can be achieved solely by means of correct, healthy, neutral, positive, and progressive thinking according to the predetermination of the determining laws and recommendations, and which can be brought to fruition by means of the might of the thoughts.